Welcome to Aunty K's, your favorite radical queer indigenous auntie, bringing you tarot every day. Hello everyone and welcome to Aunty K's Tarot. So as we talk today, we are going to look through my land back tarot and oracles of colonization. Because that's relevant to what we're doing. So it's a 78 card tarot deck and a 23 card oracle deck in one. And so what I'm going to talk about today is, I did a video on tarot reviewer questions, which was a VR and a current tag. And so I thought it would be interesting as somebody who reviews tarot decks, works on the hotlines as well as with some private clients, primarily in my community. And as somebody who created a tarot deck, and kickstarted it, and I had folks review my tarot deck, and I went into finding folks to review my tarot deck a little bit blind, but having read tarot reviews and watched flip throughs and walkthroughs. I had, I think some idea of what I was looking for, and I learned things that will definitely be applied when I find reviewers for my Marseille tarot that I'm working on. And I have a rough list in my head already of folks I would like to approach. So, when is a tarot deck creator looking for in a tarot reviewer? So, first of all, you are looking for somebody who is going to appreciate your deck. So this was a super niche deck. It's more niche than my Marseille deck. My Marseille deck represents the world majority. This deck is an indigenous deck from, a decolonial land back perspective. And represents and has in it people that I know. This is my kid from a real event, that was the AFN chief at the time and prime minister of Charlatan for the high event. So this was a super niche deck. This is my friend and her son. And so, I was looking at, well, who's going to appreciate, a political far left deck. For, the deck I'm making now, I'll be thinking about who's going to appreciate a diverse Marseille. In of those people, who's most going to like my color scheme. And from my personal standpoint, I also want to include who's going to ask the best questions or like have the most constructive critiques. That is also things I considered in looking at this deck. Probably less so who's going to appreciate color or art style. But to some degree, I felt pretty certain if wasn't their art style, they would be into the world view presented here. So, I changed a few titles. I changed the courts. They're scout, warrior, auntie, and uncle. And so it, knowing that, I know there's going to be people out there who don't like to see changes and people who do like to see changes. And it can be interesting to have a reviewer from both camps, but you probably want the reviewer who might be critical to be someone who excels at constructive criticism and can be like, well, I don't really like this because that's not my thing. And have a constructive opinion. And then there'll be those who are just like, oh, I always discount decks that do this. So you probably don't want that person as your reviewer. So you are looking for somebody who is, going to appreciate your deck. Multiple somebodies who are going to appreciate your deck. And you are also looking for people who excel at a positive critique. Because there are going to be some people who don't like it. And to some degree, you don't super want to market your deck to people who aren't going to appreciate it. Because, well, all publicity is publicity. You want the deck to reach your target audiences. And you probably have multiple target audiences. This deck has multiple target audiences. Who it was made for is obviously my smallest target audience. This was made for Indigenous folks with left-leaning, anti-colonial perspective. That is a target audience. Other Indigenous folks are also going to appreciate the perspective, largely. So Indigenous tarot readers. But that's a really small market. And a lot of Indigenous folks don't dive into the mainstream esoteric communities because they can be toxic. So it's hard to actually reach that demographic through traditional tarot tuber or tarot IG or tarot social media means. So the next target audience is left-leaning BIPOC folks, and then left-leaning white folks. And, centrist white folks are probably not going to like this deck. Because it is not the Indigenous vibe they're looking for. Here again is a friend of mine. So this is just everyday life at a powwow with an inside joke, but so it's made for Indigenous folks. Like, non-Indigenous folks are not going to get the inside joke of Pepsi. But so that is one aspect of who you are looking for in your deck reviewers. The interesting thing about the channels we watch for deck reviews, we don't I think necessarily most watch the channels who have the same deck taste as we do, but the channels that have the most compatible world views to us. Because that's where we're going to agree or disagree with the commentary. So, because being, a mixed race Lakota is a political act in general, let alone making art, and is such for other, BIPOC folks, marginalized folks. That aspect of who we watch on TarotTube and who we follow on Instagram benefits me when looking for a reviewer even more. So there is that. But you're going to look at followers and how that person's videos are received, right? And so I chose both large and medium reviewers. And I also chose one person whose Instagram account we were following each other and discussing tarot stuff together. And they hadn't done any reviews before, so they didn't do reviews, but they, I asked if they would like to, and then they did, and that is Tarot Adventures with Jules, and now she receives decks for review because she did a great job. And that fit where I was coming from is like, indie deck creator doing this for the first time. Why not find someone who wanted to review for the first time? I sent to Indie Deck Review. I had categories of reviewer size. I sent to a friend as well. That didn't really bring in much in the way of reviews or purchases, but it did with my reach through them the people I made this deck for, and but this deck would not have funded without the support of those other two categories of people. And so I had to know who my multiple target audiences were and find people who represented those multiple target audiences in varying degrees of reach, right? Indie Deck Review, that's how this deck made it. That's the review that got this deck funded, absolutely with the help of all the others. So you do have to consider, even when you're wanting to reach out to smaller creators, you do have to consider large reach. But you want that large reach to hit the demographic that's going to buy your deck, or preferably that will hit multiple demographics that will buy your deck. Indie Deck Review reached all three of my demographics, and you'll find some bigger reviewers who will hit all three of those demographics also. So you also are going to look at both the quality of the reviewers' reviews and of and the content on their channel, and that goes to how decks are how videos are watched, right? So you want reviewers who are going to talk about multiple aspects of the deck, and to get their honest opinion, that is important. So someone who's going to give their opinion, but they're going to talk about it semi beyond a personal lens. Like on Indie Deck Review, you'll see me talk about the different qualities of a deck, what it has to offer. You know, that the art is nice, unless like it was lazy or something. I'll say some nice things about it because it's going to appeal to multiple people. And most people are actually just looking at the pictures and not even reading what I have to say. And I will put critiques in there. So I give to both the creator and the consumer in my reviews. The things the creator wants you to know about their deck and where they met those expectations. And because I do end up reviewing decks I don't like. And then, you know, what other critiques do you expect from me? You expect me to critique the things I believe in. So you, if you follow me, are going to expect me to critique, you know, the politics of the deck, the diversity, equity, and inclusion of a deck. You know, there's some people you're going to expect them to deeply critique the environmental impacts of a deck. And, you know, that comes to something where, you know, we're also giving something to the creator, a creator who invested a lot in the environmental and social impacts of a deck. Like I reviewed one, the tarot mat. I'm going to have said it wrong. Club mat tarot or club mate tarot. I never was sure how it's pronounced. That creator put like an astounding amount of work into the environmental impacts. And so I made sure that was a good part of my review. That's something I believe in and think is important. That was something I put thought and consideration and work into for this deck, not to the same degree, but you know, like, and and there's also consumers who are looking for what that creator is putting out there. And I have to know, like, even if that wasn't important to me, that there's a population looking for that. And for the creator and that consumer, I would mention it, right? So those are qualities I'm looking for. I'm going to look at what kind of channel is this. Is this a channel that has the vibe I want? Is this a channel that respects indie creators and understands capitalism and isn't living under some delusion that independent art is, you know, making anybody wealthy or even fucking middle class? Like, that's not the reality. I'm going to include a link in the description box where you can all check out, depending on the country you come from, that the majority of viewers will be able to use this tool. And you can put your income in and your country, and it will tell you what percentile you land in. Since some people bragged about how low they were on the ladder, I was able to compare where I stood on the ladder to them from their countries and my countries. And I was definitely at the lowest. Big surprise. It's a mixed race, queer, you know, artist, hotline reader. Whew, can't imagine that. But, you know, like, I also opt to not climb the ladder beyond survivance. So I live small. So, you know, there are certain, like, places I wouldn't go. Like, I'm not going to reach out to channel that says, "Ooh, I love diversity," every time they bring on a diverse deck, 1 in 10, and then you never see that deck again because really they just use white decks. Like, I'm not going to choose those channels, right? And likewise, somebody who mostly reviews mass market decks and is fussy about indie decks, like, obviously, as an indie creator, that's not who I'm going to reach out to, right? Obviously, for my Marseille deck, I will not be reaching out to traditionalists. I did not reach out to traditionalists with this deck. So now we're looking at the oracles of colonization. They mirror the major arcana. They're like a shadow arcana with two fools. So, you know, that is what an indie creator, marginalized indie creator such as myself is looking for. And even though mass market is starting to, you know, be more inclusive, the majority of BIPOC creators and marginalized creators are still indie creators. And a lot are not ever going to take the option to mass market because their products are likely to be whitewashed to some degree, right? Like, mass market probably wouldn't let me do this. It wouldn't let me have my charlatan card either. So wouldn't let me have my devil card with, you know, a residential school survivor choking out a priest in front of a residential school. Like, if there's art that's not allowed to go mass market fully. They'd let me get away with this, but not those other things I mentioned. And that's part of the reality of indie decoration. It just is, you know. Creators are part of this circle of deck collecting, deck purchasing, deck reviewing, and deck creation. That's where it starts. And the reality is, most indie deck creators, not all, it's the same as mass market, not all, but most, like, they're people who are represented in other aspects of that circle also. We are also consumers and readers and reviewers. And so, you know, for those who are interested in deck reviewing, or those who are creating and wondering, like, what do I look for? Those are my particular thoughts, and I certainly welcome, you know, other creators who, you know, sent decks out to reviewers to talk about it. See y'all later, folks.